In this video, I'm making a clay Tic Tac Toe Board. I made two versions, with the beach ball and surfboard one being the easiest for beginners. I also show how I made a pouch to hold all the pieces, so you can use the timestamp chapters to skip around the video. The items that I used were cold porcelain, which is an air dry clay, acrylic paints, wax paper, a ruler, a needle tool, a dotting tool, paintbrushes, and a sponge. I started by lining my surface with wax paper so that the clay doesn't stick to it. Then I got a good amount of clay and I'm going to roll this out. So I'm going to put another wax paper on top, and since I don't have a rolling pin, I'm going to use my paint bottle. So I roll it one way, then turn it and roll the other way. Then I use my hands just to stretch it a little bit more, and then flatten it again. And I'm using an eyeshadow palette that I had just as a guide for the size and shape that I want. And I'm taking my ruler and I'm just using that to get rid of the excess clay. And I'm saving all those leftover pieces for later. So here's my current shape. I'm going to take water on my fingers and I'm just going to smoothen out the edges and round out the corners. Also using my ruler to make straighter lines. I wanted my board to look like sand, so I'm just going to take this wire tool and I'm going to poke everything until it has the texture that I want. Then I used my ruler just to gently mark where I wanted my lines to be. I'm taking my needle tool and I'm carving out the line. I'm using the tool to pull up the sides and then flatten the excess clay down with my finger. And I'll repeat that on the other side. Using my ruler just to deepen the line a little bit more. I repeated the process again for the other line. Then I dipped my tool in water, and that was just so that I can make all those little vertical lines disappear by smoothing them out, because the goal was to make it look like I actually carved a line in the sand. Then I repeated the same steps to complete the grid. Then I took my tool to bring back some texture because as the clay was drying, it lost a lot of the details. So I let it fully dry for a couple days and it looks like this. I mixed some acrylic paints together to get this sandy color and painted the whole board. Then I mixed in white to get a lighter shade and took my makeup sponge and patted it all around. And took the dry side and patted that down too. Then I took a darker sand color in my paintbrush and I went in between the lines. Taking a little bit of that same color, I went over my whole board with my sponge. And then I'll finish it off with a matte acrylic top coat. Now the fun part for me were making the game pieces. So the first one is the shell. The first thing I did was take a piece of clay, got some paint, and mixed it in. Then I separated it into equal pieces, and you're going to need 5 per game piece. So taking one of my pieces, I rolled it up into a ball. I'm going to use my finger to smush it down. And I'm going to use my needle tool to make the lines, but you can replace this with a toothpick. I made a line down the middle, and a line on each side. Then in between the lines that I made, I'm going to make one more set of lines. Then at both sides, I'm going to take a chunk of the clay and turn that into the bottom part of the shell. I'm taking some of the excess clay and then sculpting the rest into a triangular shape. Then taking my finger, I'm adding a curve to the top of every line. Taking my tool again just to redefine the lines. Then I'm flipping it to the backside so I could smush it into a more even shape. And I'm taking my tool one more time and I'm just defining the triangular shape on the bottom of the shell. After letting it completely air dry, I painted 2 coats of this pearly pink acrylic paint. I did that with the rest of my pieces and I sealed everything off with a glossy acrylic paint top coat. For the starfish, I already mixed in my color, rolled it into a ball, and now I'm going to use my finger to squish it. Taking my tool, I'm cutting into it to section off the different pieces. I made 5 equal portions. And pinched them into a triangular shape. Then I flattened the ends with my fingers because I wanted it to be a rounded shape. And then I used some water on my finger to smoothen out the lines. I defined the edges a bit more, and then when I was finally happy with the shape, I took a nail art dotting tool to make the details. Once it was fully dried, I painted over it with the same orange color that I had mixed in before. I left the little craters unpainted because I like the two-tone orange. Then I took my smallest dotting tool and made several dots with white acrylic paint. And I seal these with a glossy top coat as well. And that's it for version 1. Other things you can sculpt could be sand dollars, sea turtles, crabs, hermit crabs, other kinds of seashells. There are so many great options, it was really hard to narrow it down to the ones that I picked. The beach ball is the easiest shape, so you're gonna roll the clay into a ball and smush it down. I rounded out my edges a bit more. Let this air dry, painted it with white. I painted a line down the middle and then made curves to thicken it, making a shape similar to a cat eye. Then I took my red and made a curved line along the edge. And with my blue paint, doing the same thing on the other side. Then I took a light gray and a curved brush and I painted on the top and bottom. And went over that with the white, leaving some of that gray as an outline. And then painted a glossy acrylic top coat on all of them. And for the surfboard, you guessed it, we're rolling it into a ball and smushing it with our finger. But this time we're gonna elongate it. I'm just gently squishing the sides to make the shape. and pinching the edges just a little. Once that air dried, I painted it blue. I used 2 different blues and made different variations of line designs. And to paint them, I used my liner brush that's for nail art, so that made it easy to paint tiny straight lines. For this design, I did a thick line down the center, 2 thin lines on the side, painted a border along the edges, and made 2 very thin lines with the aqua color. And like everything else, I finished it off with a glossy acrylic top coat. Some other cute items that you can make would be flip-flops, sand castles, a bucket and shovel, sunglasses, diving flippers, and a snorkel mask. The last thing I did was make a pouch to hold everything in. I was making it up as I go, so this is not the best tutorial for how to make a pouch, but just in case you wanted to see, this is what I did. I took a folded piece of paper and put my board on top. I marked how wide I wanted it to be. I folded the top down to make sure it would still fit even after being sewn. Then I cut it out, and when it was unfolded, it looked like this. I placed that on a piece of fabric so I knew where to cut, and once I cut out the fabric, I have this. I used my serger machine to serge the edges of this. You can also use a zigzag stitch on a sewing machine. After I serged the edges, I folded them and ironed them down. And this is the inside of the pouch. The outside of the pouch looks like this. Then I marked 2 dots with a washable marker on where I wanted my buttonholes to be. Then I made the buttonholes using my sewing machine, and this is where my rope is going to come out of. So far the outside of the pouch looks like this. And I took one end and placed it on top of the other so that the right sides of the pouch are touching each other. And I'm going to serge the edges together, which again, if you don't have, you can use the zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. Then I folded and ironed the top down, and I'm going to sew all around the bottom edge. Now I flipped it right side out, then taking my rope, I'm going to pull it through the top part of my pouch. I'm using a bobby pin to help me thread it. Once it was out the other side, I cut and knotted the ends. I think this would be a really cute gift or just a fun creation to make for yourself. I really enjoyed making it, and I'd love to see if you make it too. See you soon!